Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you catch this. This is February 1st, which is the first day of our Black History Month. Now, for me personally, I celebrate Black History Month 24/7, 365. I don't sit around and wait for February 1st to celebrate Black accomplishment. Unfortunately, a lot of Black folks throughout the years have complained that the system only gave us 1 month a year to celebrate our history, and then it is the shortest month of the year. Now, little quick history lesson on Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson and another gentleman actually started something called Negro History Week back in the early part of the 20th century to celebrate Black accomplishment and achievement. And when Gerald Ford was president, Gerald Ford actually said 1 week was not enough to celebrate accomplishment of Black folks. So he went ahead and expanded it to the full month. And the reason the month of February was chosen was to honor Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, both whom birthdays fall in February. So that's a little history lesson for Black History Month. So stop complaining about the system giving us the shortest month out of the year to celebrate our accomplishment, and you start celebrating our accomplishment 12 months out of the year. I have a page on Facebook called the Blackboard 2, TOO, and I've been sharing information there. When did I create the page? I had to create it last year, the year before. I don't even remember, to be honest with you. But I had another one once before, and I kind of let that one go because I lost a lot of the control mechanisms over there. So you can get Black history information every day at the Blackboard 2 on Facebook. You don't have to wait until the month of February when everybody comes across a few little tidbits and they want to throw it out there. And sadly, we complain about February being the shortest month out of the year, but around about February 13th, we've stopped caring about any Black history anyway, because Valentine's Day is on the 14th. Normally the NBA All-Star game is around the same time. And then we're looking at to see what our college basketball teams are getting ready to do for their seedings for the tournament. So we complain about the system, but we don't even take our own energy and educate ourselves. And not only educate ourselves, we won't even educate our kids. And so stop waiting on the system. That's the problem. We keep waiting on the system to tell us when it's okay to do something. And speaking of the system, I'm fit to talk about the system y'all vote for. Now, as I stated, this is what I'm giving you for Black History Month. I might throw a little history in there, but more than anything, I'm going to talk about what's been put in place since y'all's pick got inaugurated just a little bit over a week ago, about a week and a half ago. And I say y'all's pick because y'all voted for it. And I don't have a pick. And I might talk a little bit about that in this video as well. But y'all had to know at some point I was going to have to address this issue. Now, many of you have heard the statement that some people speak when they have something to say, and fools speak when they have to say something. And so I don't know which one you consider me to be, but you know what? It doesn't concern me at all. See, because I do my homework and I do my research before I talk about or share anything with you guys. So many people in today's society just talk with nothing to back up what they say. Now, if I don't speak on a topic, one thing you better know, that means I haven't studied it enough. Now, there are plenty of topics I've studied well that I just don't talk about. Because before many folks, especially black folks, can even understand those subject areas, they must remove the political blinders. Now, I read this on Twitter a day or two ago. And let me grab it right quick and say, let's go, y'all. It was by a black person, of course. I'm crying my eyes out. We got 45 out. We voted out white supremacy. So you voted out a guy after 4 years in politics to vote in a guy who has spent almost 50 years in politics, whose policies have been largely detrimental to black folks. And you think you voted out white supremacy just because he was a little more vocal? As comedian Jeff Foxworthy says, you must be a special kind of stupid. Now, we fight to hold folks accountable. And we fight for black life. At least that's what we say. Lady named Maria Stewart. She's a black lady born free in the early 1800s. And, as I've stated before, all blacks were not slaves. But she was born free in, I think, 1803, somewhere around in there, if I'm not mistaken. But she was actually the first black Hebrew woman to speak to a mixed crowd of men and women, and white and black. And she was also the first woman to ever lecture about women's rights. See, all women hear about is Susan B. Anthony. See, we never taught about the black folks that did things long before white folks did it. But she was the first woman to ever lecture about women's rights. And she actually gave anti-slavery speeches. And one of the things she said was, there are no chains so galling as the chains of ignorance. And y'all remember the Zoom call that was leaked out when Biden was talking to your so-called black leaders? Now, personally, I'm not sure if it was an accident. I actually think it was intentional. And I think Biden wanted y'all to hear it. And sadly, most of your black misleadership class knows the agenda from the system when they tell us who to follow and when they tell us who to vote for. Biden basically gave black folks the middle finger. Keep on saying we got that sister girl magic if you want to, because all you're doing is trying to justify your decision. Emotions don't make good things happen. Even if you get married off of emotions, it's going to go bad at some point. I've seen people get married on emotions only. And as a matter of fact, my wife and I actually talked about one of the young ladies, or the young lady I kind of was in I'm not going to say a long term, it was less than a year, but we were in a relationship for almost a year. And my wife and I talk about her and I all the time. And this young lady was ready to get married after about 5 months. And might even been 3 months. I don't even remember, but it was pretty quick. And I knew neither one of us were mentally ready. Sure, emotionally, we may have been ready because we were so much in love, but we might have been ready that way, but we needed to be ready mentally, and neither one of us were. And so at age 19, she was 19, I was 20 at the time, we more than likely wouldn't have lasted for 5 years. Now, we have to be more careful with decisions that are impacting our lives. What does the Bible say? We must be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. A serpent studies its prey, sometimes for days before it ever attacks. we need to really study the people we vote for, the way we act and the way we respond, especially when it comes to voting, shows that we have no wisdom, no real knowledge of history, and when it comes to Democrats, they know we have no teeth. They know we are harmless, and they know we're not wise. So they keep treating us with disrespect over and over again. Let me tell you a little history lesson. The Democratic Party is 100 years ahead of the Republican Party as far as the age of political parties in this country go. And as I stated before, Republicans never owned slaves. It was all Democrats. So the Democrats have actually been able to master and fine tune their craft for much longer than any other party. Every party that comes out in this country historically that has not been the Republican Party or opposed to totally enslaving blacks has been gobbled up or has actually merged with the Democratic Party. Do your homework, Whigs. Look at the communist and socialist parties. And you had the Democratic Republicans. That was a combined group. And there's been a lot of other parties. I mean, y'all just don't understand. Just a few years ago, about 10 years ago, you still had 32 active political parties in this country. So why do you only get to see 2? But every party that hasn't been Republican has been merged with the Democrats, fell by the wayside, and the members gobbled up by the Democrats. So y'all don't know your history. The school system has done a wonderful job of conditioning us. Now, I'm going to tell you this one more time. The parties did not switch sides in the 60s or no time since. I don't care what you keep hearing from these jack-legged politicians, these jack-legged black preachers. The parties never switched. There were only a few people who jumped ship, and they once Strom Thurmond made so much noise that y'all think the whole party switched. Now, I cover that topic a lot more in detail in my book, but hey, what do I know? Which is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through me personalized at myranjones at gmail. Now, the current socialist and communist party heads said a few years ago that they would merging their parties with the Democrats only to destroy the Republican Party. I'm not making this stuff up, folks. They said this themselves. And you know what, black folks? Guess what party was targeting black folks at the end of slavery? At the turn of the 20th century? Throughout the entire 20th century? And up until the Civil Rights Act was signed? Did you guess the Communist Party? What party you think founded your NAACP and Urban League? And it wasn't even black people that founded either one of those. As I always state, never take my word for anything. It is well documented for those who want to know the truth. Sadly, most people are running from the truth now because the truth is going to make you rethink your decisions. The truth is going to make you rethink everything you've been taught. So instead of challenging your thought process, you rather just keep your head stuck in the sand. And if you keep your head stuck in the sand, guess what's exposed? Now, your boy Biden had already, since he's been in office, I think he signed on day one, what was it, 19 executive orders? And so one of the first ones he signed was he rescinded one that Trump had signed, where Trump said the cost of insulin and other pharmaceuticals, epinephrine, however you say that, epinephrine, that's what it is, epinephrine, lower the prices for the American consumer. Well, Biden reversed that order and said that ain't gonna happen no more. Now, I shared that information with somebody, And they told me that was fake news. But ironically, they never gave me any information that proved that it was fake. The Trump order that he had also put in place had actually mandated for community health centers to pass all the discount savings down to the consumers as well. But guess what your boy Biden did? That's gone too. Trump had told hospitals they needed to be transparent with all of the pricing on all their services so the people could know beforehand what something costs so they could shop around first to find the best price. Do I need to tell you? Now, ICE officials were actually told by the Biden administration to release all the detainees in their custody. Joe Biden said he was holding all deportations. One ICE official said release them all. And see, what you need to understand, if the detainees don't have United States sponsors, the agents are supposed to hold them. And so that's no longer the case. And even all the detainees that don't have sponsors are supposed to be held. But under this order now, all of them get to be released. So no more deportations, regardless of the criminal conviction. And he put this in place for 100 days. And it's also going hand in hand with his policy of open borders. And they want a permanent end to deportation. So in 100 days, if nothing changes, do you think ICE is going to be able to find these folks they released? Do you think ICE even has that many resources to go after them? But you know what? Thankfully, the Supreme Court stepped in and told old Joe no. Now, black people, black people, black people. Let me say this again, black people. Y'all need to understand that blacks have outlived their usefulness to the Democratic Party. How can I say that? Because Biden is going full assault to open up citizenship for millions of those same illegal immigrants. He released some. You think they ain't gonna get the right to vote because they already said murderers and rapists. He's trying to push right now for them to have the right to vote as well. See, we all caught up in the nostalgia. Black girl magic, sister girl magic. Did y'all see that purple outfit and them pearls? And y'all run around here with your Chuck Taylors on. I wore Chuck Taylors when I was a kid. That's all my daddy bought for me. There ain't nothing new. Y'all just catching up 40 years later. But by targeting the illegal immigrants, they pushing y'all as black folks to the side. They ain't done nothing for you. They don't plan on doing nothing for you. He's working on his new voting block. He's working on the Democratic Party new voting block because y'all black folks ask for too much, even though y'all have never gotten anything from the Democrats. Y'all keep asking for too much, and they don't plan on giving it to you. He's got something in place for not only illegal immigrants. He's got something in place for Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Asian Americans. I think he just appointed an Asian American to some post. But we don't understand. And guess what he has in place for black people? And so we need to understand that. Nothing. Nothing. Now, guess what he did say? And since he wrote 1994 crime bill, which y'all, boy, I heard a lot of black folks say they really wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. Well, Bernie Sanders signed the 1994 crime bill too. But Biden not only had the 1994 crime bill, he had a 1986 drug bill, he had a 1984 drug bill, he had legislation on keeping segregation intact back in the 70s, and I think maybe even the early 80s. So guess what? He didn't say it for black people, but indirectly, it's for black people. He said he's working to improve prison conditions. Well, it was his legislation that put a lot of blacks in prison in the first place. So now he's going to make it more comfortable for you. He has no plan in place for those locked up for nonviolent drug offenses, which Trump actually put in place with his First Step Act, which released multiple inmates, and 96% of the 98% that were released were black. So we love the guy who locked us up, but we hate the guy who is doing things to release us from that. Makes perfect sense to ignorant people. Even Shaun King, the new face of the black American, said nothing from Joe Biden on confronting police violence and mass incarceration, in spite of committing to families that it will be a priority on day one. Now, every day that goes by that he's been in office, he issues order after order, action after action, but nothing on his promise. There's a filmmaker named Tony Lindsay, and I think I read a tweet of his, and let me see. He said, I don't see anything that's geared toward the African American community, which handed Joe Biden the election. Guess what leftists are telling black folks? They just need to be patient. Well, how patient do they want black folks to be? You know, every time a Democrat occupies the office of the presidency, blacks are always told to be patient. Or I am just not just the president of black people. Or these things take time. How stupid are we to keep falling for these same tired lines from these people because they've conditioned us that the Republicans are the enemy when the real enemy of black folks is the Democratic Party? And no, I am not a Republican. I don't know how many times I have to tell these limited, indoctrinated thinkers that statement. I am not a Republican either. These Democrats keep telling us to wait. They keep telling us to be patient. And while we are waiting and being patient, all other groups are getting something in return for their vote. I get it. If you don't like Republicans, just sit the election out. Stop blindly giving your vote to these jackasses who treat you like little children, and you're not able to think for yourself. Since the Civil Rights Act, the only thing the Democratic Party has given blacks is a lot of political positions and a lot of prison sentences. Well, dang. That is amazing how that worked out, ain't it? We got more blacks in leadership and political positions, and then our incarceration rate skyrocketed. I told you they working for the system. Y'all better wake up. You better learn that when you see a lot of blacks venture into politics, things actually get worse for black people. Go back and watch the video I did on color and colorism, caste and caste. And if I remember, I'll put the link to that video in the description box. You know when Biden is going to talk to black folks again? When it's time for the 2024 election, if he's still around, when he wants y'all to come out again in support of him, or Kamala Harris, if he probably steps down after 2 to 3 years and lets her run and finish out his term, then she can run for the next 2 years, the two elections. Because y'all want that sister girl magic. And like I said, that's provided he still holds the office. That's when he's going to start courting black folks again. And we're going to respond in kind and do our democratic duty like good little obedient slaves. Now, Biden did say he plans on going ahead and putting Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill for y'all because Trump delayed it. So Jim Crow Joe going to throw blacks a little bone. Amazing that he put it that way, since this first came out while he and Obama reside in the White House. But you see how they do things? When all else fails, blame Trump. He plans to do that to shut black people up. Now, When Ice Cube met with the Trump administration, blacks called him all kinds of names. He said the Biden administration said to wait till after the election. Call Ice Cube and see if he got a call from Biden or his administration yet. The amazing thing is, Roland Martin told Ice Cube he got played for meeting with Trump. Well, what does Martin have to say to all of black America who voted for Biden? So Martin says Cube got played. Well, rapper Ice-T has a song for all of black Americans who voted for Biden, and that song is titled, "You Played Yourself." How many times do we need to hear the phrase, when people show you who they are, believe them? For 47 years, this dude has shown black folks where they stand with him, and we still ran out to put him in charge. Oh, I know. Sister Girl Magic, Chuck Taylor's, Diamonds and Pearls. You know what else Ice Cube said that wasn't talked about? He said something I've been saying for years. He said that black folks needed to be independent. You know who else said that a while back at St. Agnes Church right here in Houston for the 2005 State of the Black Union? Because it was supposed to be in New Orleans that year, but Katrina kind of destroyed that. So they brought it here to Houston. But Arthur Walter Mosley also said that. Y'all know Walter Mosley? Y'all remember the devil in the blue dress? So if black folks would not even listen to other blacks who they hold to what we call a degree of prestige, I guess I shouldn't get too upset that they don't listen to me either. You know who we as black folks listen to? We listen to our slave masters. I said it. I said it. And they listen to the black overseers that the slave masters appoint to manage blacks for them. What do you think all of these black mouthpieces for the Democrats are? Yeah, I said it again. My inner circle is small anyway, so I don't care if you upset with me. We probably not hanging out anyway. We probably don't have much to talk about anyway. Because your conversation is one-sided. I like to communicate with people who are able to have an open conversation, that's able to look at a conversation in details from all angles, not just a one-sided conversation, not just a one-sided piece of history that somebody else told that you didn't even study yourself. I don't like having one-sided conversation. Presidents from both parties have dropped the ball with regard to black folks, but we are the biggest hypocrites because we overlook the things Trump did and we overlook the things that Obama didn't do. And right now, we are excited about Tubman on a $20 bill. Hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care if it's dead slave masters on them $20 bills. I just want to have more $20 bills in my pocket. You see how simple Democrats think we are? They are still giving us chitlins and pig feet, and we think they feeding us well. I'm going to say this again. No Republican owned a slave. You see, the master tells black folks to suppress the hatred they have of Democrats and redirect it to Republicans. Totalitarian rulers always provide the people some object for their hatred, which is generated by the ruler who is actually taking away your freedom. And the more insecure an individual is, the more they support the people who oppress them. It's like a boxer in the ring who's getting beat bad. And what does he do if he's getting beat bad? He will come close to his opponent and he will wrap his arms around him to stop the beating. But as soon as he lets his opponent go, the beating starts again until someone rings the bell. Now, until we realize we are captive in a democratic stronghold, we will never realize our hatred for what they did to us and our ancestors. But you know what? Slaves are not permitted to hate their masters, so they suffer in silence and they only express themselves to other slaves. They don't like to have intellectual conversation with those who think differently, who've left the plantation. They want all the people within their conversation or their inner circle to think just like them. If you talk about running off the plantation, they gonna start telling you why you should stay. Man, master feed us good. Master provide us a place to sleep at night. Master do this for us. Master, Yeah, Master also beat the hell out of you too. Democrats know above and beyond that they can continue to treat us like garbage time and time again because they have no competition for our vote. As I stated earlier, just stay at home. If you feel that badly about Republicans, just stay at home. Going and voting for Democrats as a black person is like black folks fighting to keep the institution of slavery intact. Y'all ain't figured that out yet. And so by doing that, you making sure you keep yourself in bondage. Does that even make good common sense to you? I heard a guy say years ago, common sense is not too common. Biden said himself, if the voters turn the state of Georgia blue, the $2,000 checks will go out immediately, like Bernie Mac would say. But now that Georgia is blue, his administration said the checks would be the difference of the $1,400 to add to the $600 that you already got, if you got it. Even members of Congress from his own party said that what he did was wrong by lying to the people. There was a guy in Georgia who campaigned for him. Said this guy, I was telling my wife the other day, this guy said he knocked on over 1,000 doors and told the people they would be rewarded. I don't mean to laugh because it's a serious issue. But what that sounds like is they buying your vote. Just at a lower level than what's going on with these big corporations and all these big donors. But this guy said he knocked on them doors and told the people they will be rewarded by voting for Democrats because that's what the Biden administration told him to tell the people. And he says he feels like a fool now for lying to them people. Now, I've had blacks tell me for years, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to stop, that I only criticize Democrats but never Republicans. Well, first of all, until you start voting for Republicans, ain't no need of me talking to you about it because you do a good enough job yourself. But I could turn that whole statement around on them because every black person that has ever told me that only criticizes Republicans. And like I said, the difference is blacks don't vote for the people they criticize. You can't criticize people you don't vote for. That don't even make sense. They have no obligation to you. And see, when I make a statement like that, when I say they don't have obligation to you because you didn't vote for them, then that's when y'all want to come out and say, well, they supposed to do something for the whole country. But then when they get in there and do something for black folks, well, look at all these loopholes in there that was put in place that said it ain't gonna maintain it if this don't happen. Man, look at here. Man, y'all need to go jump somewhere. But personally, I have voted for Democrats. I have voted for Republicans. I have voted third party. And I have actually written myself in. I can be very objective that way. When blacks finally wake up, and sadly I'm having a hard time believing it will ever happen at this point. But if they do, we can talk about Republicans together. You know, that's like criticizing a woman or a man that you're not married to for not doing anything for you around your house or anything. You're not married to them, so how can you expect them to do anything for you? Why should that person do something for you other than speak and wave when you see them outside? How do you expect Republicans to do something for you, but you won't even punch the ballot just one time? Stop expecting people to do something for you who refuse to support you back. Hell, stop supporting people that you vote for who are giving you nothing in return. You know what blacks get from Republicans? The same thing they do from Democrats. So as we talk about this sister girl or black girl magic, diamonds and pearls, purple rain, black women, more than anyone, encourage blacks to get out the vote for the president who locked up blacks with the 1/16th black vice president's sister, whose ancestors owned slaves. Now, ironically, a lot of black girls benefit from athletic scholarship in today's times. Now, those same girls, those same black girls are going to have to compete with males who were born males that want to identify as females because they are too weak and spineless to compete with other males because the two people they just voted for just gave their rights as females away. Now, this group of people also happens to be the group of people who represent the fastest growing prison population in the United States, black women. Y'all remember the show Orange is the New Black? Y'all missed all of that symbolism in that title? So black women went out to vote for two people who had spent their entire political careers sending black people to prison, even if they were not guilty, even if evidence proved they were not guilty, and even if it was their first offense. Makes perfect sense to the intellectually challenged. And don't come at me with her family owned slaves, not her, because you don't afford the same luxury to whites whose ancestors owned slaves. Blacks excuse Obama's family ties to slavery on both sides. And now they're excusing Harris's family ties. Oh, like I said, I heard the conversation about black folks. That was her ancestors, not them. Or that was Obama's ancestors, not him. Okay, let's go with that. If that's the case, why y'all keep bringing up Trump's dad affiliation with the KKK? That was his daddy. That wasn't him. He might have been crazy, but I ain't seen Trump do nothing in his time in office that was detrimental to black people. Nothing. I've asked black people many times, tell me what Trump has done to hurt black people. But I ain't got no answers yet. I mean, some people might try to fashion something, but they ain't came up with nothing significant. But I haven't even had a person give me an answer yet on what Trump did that was detrimental to black people. I got the video on here telling you what Biden did to black people. I got the video on here to tell you how many black people Trump has supported long before he ever ascended to the presidency. So we are really a simple-minded people. I used to take offense when I would hear this black guy say that black people's brains are the size of a BB. Black women, your vote for the Democratic ticket signed away all of your rights. And you can't even see it because the hatred in your heart is so strong. I mean, what did I say earlier about the emotional decision? Oh, I've been seeing on social media here recently about how the sorors got out and rocked the vote to get Sister Girl in that office. We had to get our soror in the office. But you sign your rights away and don't even realize. Since Biden's been in office, the Mexican president said Joe Biden told him the U.S. was sending them $4 billion, as Ernie Hudson said on the car warranty commercial, that's with a B, to help development in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. $4 billion to Central America. But black folks, Biden said he has a focus on climate change. Ask yourself, who the ones really destroying the climate? What y'all really need to understand is climate change is actually a code word for depopulation. But I'm not here to do that video. Do your own research. He's already signed the executive order destroying the Keystone Pipeline, which is going to cause thousands of people to lose their jobs. The job layoffs are supposed to start, I think, in March, beginning of March. I think hundreds of them have already been laid off. And the order was just signed a week and a half ago. So how does this work? I'm going to kill jobs with one executive order, and then I'm going to raise minimum wage with another executive order. Makes perfect sense. He is destroying good paying jobs, but wants to make sure you can earn a higher minimum wage. Some of those Keystone Pipeline jobs were paying $125 an hour. And his plans are also to extend rent and mortgage protection until the end of September 2021 this year. Now, let me ask a question. How many landlords are going to be able to sustain their properties if no one is paying them for almost another year? So when these properties are no longer handled by the current landlords because they're going to have to default on those loans that they took out from the bank, the government's going to come in, rush in, and take over the property. And guess how government takes care of things they control? He's already reversed the Trump policy which banned transgenders from serving in the military. So where do these people sleep and shower if they haven't had reassignment surgery? Would women feel comfortable with an actual man sleeping and showering in the same barracks as them? And guess what he did? See, this is how simple-minded we are. He appointed a black military guy, I can't think of the guy's name right now, to kind of oversee something in that arena. Why do Democrats always appoint black folks to get us to follow something immoral? We got the black guy now kind of in charge of this whole situation with the military. And then you had the order signed under Obama for the homosexuals. And hey, that's their business. But why is it always a black face to get us to follow something immoral? We are so simple-minded. We're so weak in the brain. It makes me sick. I'm not going to say it makes me sick. It hurts me that people treat us like this and we can't see it. So, should employers pay more money to their employees? I mean, it depends. If you have no marketable skills, should someone pay you more money? My first job was $3.50 an hour. I had no learners, no marketable skills at the time. And so I knew I was going to be making minimum wage before I applied. Now, I've seen people that's still on a job 4, 5, 6 years and they still making minimum wage. No, you got a lack of ambition. Because if you should have been to learn something in that amount of time, and if the job that you own don't give you a raise, you take your skills and go somewhere else. Because Ecker Drugs paid me $3.50 an hour. I worked at Ecker Drugs for right under 2 years. Well, 2 years because when I left and took another job, I stayed on call at Ecker Drugs. But I took my skills to a job that offered me more money. I didn't stay there. But guess what? While I was at Ecker Drugs, I had got 2 raises within that little bit under 2 years. Because I was learning and I was applying what I learned. So if you're still on a job after all that time and you haven't gotten a raise from minimum wage and you haven't took your marketable skills somewhere else, you just lack ambition. Minimum wage might have been put in place decades ago as a living wage, but it's not a living wage today. It's not meant to be a living wage today. It's a learning wage. So large corporations shouldn't have a problem giving raises. But what if it's a small business, a small mom and pop business that can't afford to pay a person that type of money? What do you think those small companies are going to do if the minimum wage is raised? People are going to get laid off, or they're going to get their hours cut. For almost a year, lots of small businesses have actually been hurt by the lockdown. That didn't work as they led all of us to believe. And I mean, I kind of knew it from the start that it was something more detrimental behind that. But we listen to all these so-called experts tell us we need to lock down, we need to mask up, and we would curb everything and numbers would go down, and apparently the numbers went up. And it's amazing that now that the new president has been sworn in, all the records coming out and it said the numbers are mysteriously decreasing at a rapid pace. Now, after 8 months in 2020, Joe Biden came out and said Donald Trump has done such a poor job these last 8 months in controlling that. And if I'm elected, we're going to put something in place to stop that immediately. Well, the other day he said, well, the way things are looking, looks like there's going to be no solution, nowhere in sight for any time soon. Keep telling y'all, we so simple. But the two leftist bastions of hell, California and New York, have already said they're gonna go ahead and reopen restaurants and businesses and all of that. And it just so happens those states are also heavily Democrat. So what's changed in the last 11 months, within this last week, that hadn't changed in the prior 10 months? You got a Democratic president. Like I said, the numbers go down, businesses open up when you got a new president sworn in. Man, we so simple-minded. It just hurts me. But the small business had already been hurt by the lockdown. And so if these small family-owned businesses have had to shut their doors already, and small family-owned restaurants have had to shut their doors already, and landlords can't evict, and they can't expect payment, where will the jobs be, and where will you live? I guess y'all waiting on Andrew Yang, with his UBI, the Universal Basic Income, going to give y'all a monthly sustenance check, but it's probably going to be tied to you taking a shot and abiding by your master, your slave master. And you got them on both sides because a Republican congressman said, you need to tie the $1,400 to the person taking the shot. So you got jacklegs on both sides of the political aisle. But in my opinion, they count on breaking so many people down that they're going to beg the government to fix what the government messed up in the first place. Or you won't be able to do any type of transaction if you don't comply. Now, I'm not putting down Section 8 housing, but I know what these places look like once a previous tenant leaves. And why did I bring that up? Because Section 8 housing is government housing. You should also know that under this administration, they are bringing back the idea to the table of taxing you per mile driven in your vehicle. That was something your previous Democratic president threw out, Barack Obama. For every mile you drive, they want to tax you. I was going through some notes of mine the other day, and they just completed the toll road down the center of the highway that's right behind my house. And the notes I have, because I take a lot of notes, I listen. Not only am I listening, when I'm listening, I'm writing. But I came across some notes because I was looking for something the other day for a friend of mine. I haven't found it yet, but I did come across this. The toll road from one end to the other, I think that's about maybe 11 miles total from downtown to where the toll road ends, something like that. But from one end to the other, I think it's either $3.90 or something like that. But the notes I found, what they told us before they even constructed the toll road, when they were begging us to vote for the toll road, they told us the toll road, that entire strip, will be just 50 cents. So they lied again. Guess what part of the mayor belonged to that sold us that bill of goods? Democrats. So they're gonna go in a full assault mode to try to tax you for every mile you drive. But you voted for the real white supremacists to get the other white supremacists out of office in that black girl magic, diamonds and pearls, purple rain. I was at my neighbor's house doing the inauguration speech. And I wasn't over there long. I was just going over there. And television was on the inauguration. And, of course, it was probably on every station. But, I had to laugh because he started talking. When I went in the house, he was talking about racial justice, racial equality. And so I had to laugh because he's been in politics for almost as long as I've been living. And he's done nothing positive to address racial equality. As a matter of fact, he's been behind a lot of the legislation to make sure blacks have been unfairly targeted by the same system that he is now vowing to address. Notice I said he's vowing to address it. You have to pay attention to wordplay. He said he will address racial equality. He didn't say he would ever reverse his policies like he is doing with Trump's policies. He said he will address it, not reverse it. I mean, he can't reverse his own stuff and make him look like a fool. Now, he has plans for the LGBT community, the illegal immigration community, the climate change community. But guess what he got for blacks? I recently read a tweet by the organization Black Lives Matter. And they said they get the feeling that the Democratic Party used them. You think? The Democratic Party's entire existence has been one of using black people. Now, I've been invited to meetings that were put on by Republicans only. I've been invited to meetings that were put on by Democrats only. I've been invited to meetings that were put on by nonpartisan voting groups, and I've attended all of them. I went to a meeting. First of all, every meeting I've attended that's been Democrats only, it was so full of hate. And I'm sitting in these meetings wondering how black folks sit here and belong to something like that that promotes hate. But one meeting I remember specifically, and I sat here. You had the DNC chair in there. You had the former fire chief of Houston in there. You had several of the National Chamber of Commerce heads in there. And you had a lot of other big wigs in this meeting, downtown Houston. And I was invited to this meeting by a friend. And I'm sitting there listening to these people. And I'm just shaking my head and laughing at them. And one of the people said, our objective is to make sure a Republican never, ever wins the seat of the mayor of Houston again. Well, we ain't had no Republican mayor in Houston since, I believe, 1981. And if you don't keep playing musical chairs with the political parties, there's no balance. And so you keep voting in Democratic mayors, but you keep complaining about everything else. I mean, you keep voting for the people, but you keep complaining about the policies they put in place. You can't blame a Republican for the policies in Houston because we ain't had one in office in almost 40 years. But I've never seen so much hate in a meeting spewed out like I've been in Democratic meetings. I didn't say nothing that whole meeting. And after the meeting, a lot of people were coming up to me wanting to know who I was. And I get told them my name, and I said, but I'm nobody. And the lady who invited me, she said, y'all stop listening to him. These are not my words. These are her words. She said, this guy is probably one of the most politically astute people you will ever meet in your life. And so she said, if we have some more of these events, I'm going to make sure to invite him and let him speak. And once we got away from the crowd, she said, Myron, I'm kind of disappointed in you. I said, well, why is that? She said, I've known you long enough to know you had something to say. And I told her, I said, oh, I had plenty to say. She said, I know you did, but I'm disappointed because you didn't say anything. And I said, you know what? I said, when I'm invited to a place for the first time, I don't say anything. I like to know who I'm dealing with. I said, because if I start talking, I'm probably not going to be invited back. And she said, if they would have put on another one of those events, she would actually allow me to keynote. But, I never heard back about any events. I don't know if they ever happened or not. I didn't put too much stock in it either. But I just couldn't believe that the hate was so strong in that room that night. Out of all the political meetings I've been in, I never encountered so much hate in my life with regards to politics. So Biden said before the election, he would evaluate, he would get a committee together to see if reparations were in order for blacks. But ironically, that appears nowhere on his agenda. He told Ice Cube he would meet with him after the election. Has that happened yet? He told the Black Lives Matter crew he would meet with them after the election. Has that happened yet? Antifa went and destroyed the DNC office in Portland. They rioted in Seattle. They burned flags in Denver. Antifa is not Trump supporters, okay? Antifa supports the Democratic Party. Now, if they were Trump supporters, it would have been plastered all over the news 24/7, 365. Now, guess what Antifa said? They don't want Biden. They want revenge for police murders, imperialist wars, and fascist massacres. I mean, Antifa got more heart than black folks who voted for Biden. Biden is not addressing any of these things. And they said, that ain't going to fly with them. And I know what black people going to say, well, if that was us, they start shooting us. And you're not going to get any argument from me on that. But are we going to keep living in fear? That much fear? The problem with black voters, as long as Republicans are in office, they are champions for to get out the vote in order to remove the Republican. But when a Democrat is in office, they sit on their hands and get nothing for their vote. They never hold the people they elected accountable. Never. Remember, blacks said when Obama was in office, if he was white, they'd have been marching up in D.C. Well, they lying. They wouldn't have did nothing because he's a Democrat. Now that Trump is out of office, blacks need to keep up that same energy they had for removing Trump to get the Biden and Harris ticket to act on the behalf of blacks. But blacks won't do that. Blacks are going to sit around and wait for the next presidential election because, we don't really show up for midterm elections either. We hardly show up for local elections because we think we're going to influence something at the ballot box for President's Day, the president's election. You're really not influencing anything at the ballot box for the presidential election. You only influence at the state and local level, but you don't like to participate in those, so it's not sexy. So we're going to allow them we're going to sit around and wait for the upcoming election in 2024. And we're going to allow the Democrats to paint us a new enemy target from the Republican Party for us to vote against. And guess what? We're going to run down there and vote against our own interests one more again. Democrats under Biden have already introduced H.R. 1, with a lot of the focus on things they want to do to solidify their hold on the election process. They want it to be mandatory for 16-year-olds to vote. Do you actually think a 16-year-old has the mentality to be voting? I mean, based on what the public school system is teaching right now, it makes sense why they want them. But they still don't know anything, which is why they want them. But, you know, the system is counting on what the school system has taught the child and also what the parents have taught the child about their voting pattern, especially if you're black, especially if you're minority. And they want kids who never question why their parents vote the way they do. Hey, I'm open enough to tell you I went out and voted for Bill Clinton in my first election because that was the first election I was registered to vote in. But you know why I did it? Because my parents and my family all voted Democrat. Guess what I was taught? And guess what I did? Even though my high school principal told me don't vote party lines. In 11th grade, he told me that. 10th grade, 11th grade, one of them. And this was in a personal one-on-one conversation with him. This wasn't him talking to a group of people. My high school principal told me never vote party lines. But my parents were the ones I was living with, and I kept hearing that over and over and over and over again. The Republicans is public enemy number one. So this H.R. 1 bill also protects anyone else, any other future president, from removing non-residents from voting. Now, why should people without residency be allowed to vote? That's like someone coming to vote in the interest, vote in your community to control what goes on in your community, but they don't live there. But I give you even one better. That's like somebody from the outside that doesn't live in your house coming in your house telling you how to run your house. Does that make sense to you? These people do not care how low they sink. And as I stated earlier, in this H.R. 1 legislation, it's not going to only give illegal immigrants the right to vote. It's also going to give murderers and rapists the right to vote as well. Now, a few years back, J.C. Watts, former congressman, superstar quarterback out of OU, he was I think, two-term congressman, black guy out of Oklahoma. He said reparations, I believe, are talked about for political reasons, trying to cater for the purpose of getting votes. If Congress was serious about reparations, in 93 and 94, the Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House, and not one single Republican vote was needed for reparations. Now, J.C. Watts was, as I stated, you heard the years 93 and 94. So he was a congressman a while back. But guess what? 2009 and 2010, Democrats controlled all that. And guess what again? Today, Democrats control all three branches. Well, not all three branches, but the House, the Senate, and the White House. Because I think that you have a conservative majority in the Supreme Court. Biden said he would talk about reparations. How many of you Bible readers remember Paul's words in Romans 12? And Paul said, on the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. What did I just tell you Andrew Yang said he wanted to do? Universal basic income. We're going to give them enough money to eat and drink. But we keeping the burning coals on their head. Our enemy keeps telling us that he's going to do things for us. And I'm just saying he. It's kind of like using he. That's whoever it is, male or female. I only know two genders, male and female, Democratic Party. So our enemy is telling us they're going to do things for us, but all the while they're putting hot coals on our head. Now, get this one. Joe Biden fired the black Surgeon General and replaced him with an Asian American. Yeah, I know the report's going to say he asked Jerome Adams to step down. But all that means is if he didn't step down, he's going to get fired. So Biden fired the black dude and replaced him with an Asian American. I told y'all earlier, blacks have outlived their usefulness to the Democratic Party. So how's that working out for you, Black America? A guy named Jonathan Hennessy said, ignorance is ultimately the worst enemy of a people who want to be free. And you remember when I started off earlier, I mentioned Maria Stewart, the black Hebrew woman that was born free in 1803. She also said this as I close out. She said, shall I, for fear of feeble man who shall die, hold my peace? Shall I, for fear of scoffs and frowns, refrain my tongue? No. And what most of us black people are scared to do, we're scared to speak up for freedom because we don't want to disappoint the rest of the black slaves.